Welcome back to Old School Sports and our OOTP 22 game with the Miami Marlins. We are at the start of the 2025 season. We've got 1 year left on our contract, and we are basically needing to play 500 ball this year to probably keep our job. It's definitely been a mixed experience for us over the years. As the manager of the Marlins. You can see here we started out in 2021 with a obvious rebuilding effort. Made a good step to get a little closer to 500 in 2022. In 2023, we were over 500, although we did miss the playoffs both of those seasons. But then last year took a big step backwards. So we've made a lot of changes in the offseason, and our hope is to have a much more productive year, get back over 500, and hopefully even be in the race for a wild card. We will get going and see what happens. Thanks for watching. Well, we've made it to mid-May, and the results are definitely mixed. We're off to a 15-19 start, which is obviously not what we were looking for. We've had some injuries, which every team has to deal with. Chasen Shreve, one of the key left-handers, one of the only left-handers also in our bullpen, is essentially out for most of the season. Another reliever, Ryan Zephyr-John, shorter-term injury. And then Michael Conforto, one of the key bats and the most expensive player on our team, has been out for the last couple of weeks, but is hopefully nearing the end of his injury to his elbow, although the injury time is still unknown. So the start hasn't been everything that we're looking for. When we kind of look at how we're faring. We have improved our team on-base percentage very modestly. We were 14th out of 15 teams last year. We're 13th right now, and we're obviously not making the grade as far as playing 500 ball. So we're going to see how the next several weeks go. Obviously have plenty of time until the trade deadline. Now the issue with our team right now is that we have no money left for free agents and not even any money left for extensions, given that we've kind of devoted everything to trying to make a run at getting over 500 and competing for the playoffs this year. So haven't been that successful yet, but we're going to continue simming and see how things go. Well, we've moved another month further into the season, and things are not getting better. As you can see, we are still in last place in the NL East. We're already 17 games out, even though it's only mid-June. And it's probably going to be our last year as an employee of the Marlins, unless things really turn around. Injuries have not been our friend, but as we knew coming into the season, we didn't have a great team and didn't have a huge budget, so not going to blame this on injuries. You can see we still do have three pitchers on the injured list, and our starting catcher Austin Hedges also just went on the injury list. I guess the only positive thing in that is that Tucker Barnhart, our backup, has been complaining constantly this season about not getting starting playing time. So the fact that he'll be able to start over the next several weeks with Yan Gomes called up from Jacksonville to back him up will hopefully at least make Tucker feel a little better as many of us continue on this march to unemployment. Well, we've made it to the midway point of the season, and we're 34-47. So sadly, that means that our winning percentage has increased a bit since the last time we checked in, and we are 6-4 over our last 10 games. That being said, not a great situation. Owner Bruce Sherman just checked in. Obviously not very pleased with our team record. Haven't improved our OBP as much as we'd like to. And he's modestly pleased with bringing in Eduard Bazardo as a potential Gold Glove winner as a relief pitcher. he's not upset with him, but certainly not what he was looking for, and not what I was looking for. Not that I was specifically going to find a Gold Glover given our financial constraints. He's overall upset with our performance towards our goals and may have to make some more changes to the head office. So we'll see what happens. Don Mattingly and I are linked with both of our contracts expiring at the end of this season, so it will be relatively easy for Mr. Sherman to clean house if that's what he decides to do. We don't have a lot of money. It may be time at this point to consider trading some players and kind of at least trying to position the organization better for the future. Don't want to totally throw in the towel, but by the same token, what we're doing isn't working. So maybe time to look at getting rid of one or more of the most expensive contracts that we have on our books. So that is something that I'll be investigating in the coming weeks. If we can get rid of a larger contract, that could give us an opportunity to pick up a few guys with smaller contracts that may be able to help change the direction of our team. Looking at where we are midway through the season, obviously our record is not good, and our offense is still a problem. Our OBP, which we needed to improve from 14th, we have executed modestly on that, getting up to 12th. But if you look at most of the other batting metrics, we are certainly a second division type of performer. And our pitching, which has historically been our strength over the first 4+ years of this sim, is very mediocre all. We didn't invest much in the pitching staff over the offseason, and we're probably paying a little bit of the price for that. The only thing we are good at not walking people. I guess that's something. Looking more specifically at how some of the players have performed midway through the season, obviously no one really raking the ball when a 286 batting average and a 361 OBP is the best that you have to offer. Dominic Smith is a big free agent signing, has been pretty disappointing. 272 average is fine, but only a 1 WAR with 5 homers and 29 ribbies. Phillip Evans, neutral as far as his WAR for one of our acquisitions. Devin Mann, who was our Rule 5 acquisition, has added a little bit. Jesus Sanchez, a big offensive player for us, is having a respectable season, I would say. But because of some of his defensive inefficiencies in center field, hasn't generated the WAR that we would hope. Overall, when you think about WAR, not a surprise that on a team with not much offense, our good defensive shortstop Freddie Galvis is as good as it gets. So has definitely been a disappointing start to the season so far. And then looking at pitching, also a very mixed bag with our pitching as well. Sixto Sanchez, Trevor Rogers, and Denny Brady, who are 3 of our starters, are having decent seasons, but certainly not great. Eduardo Bizzardo, our closer, has 20 saves, which sounds impressive, but when you combine that with a 1-6 record, 4.45 ERA, not that impressive, and a 356 batting average on balls in play. Certainly not strong. When you look at this number, a lot of high numbers on BABIP. So, maybe that means our luck will get better in the second half of the season. Maybe it just means that our defense in our infield and outfield is a complete disaster, and it's not going to be our season. But we will see what happens in the coming weeks. It may be desperation, but we did just make a major trade. We decided to send our most expensive player on our roster, Michael Conforto, who has really had a disappointing season for us, as you can see, batting under 200 and also spent some times injured, and has a contract at over $12 million a year for the next several seasons as he heads towards his mid-30s. We were able to trade him along with a middling minor league shortstop and a middling, if at best, minor league relief pitcher to the Giants for center fielder Mauricio Dubon. Very average at best hitting profile, but a decent defensive center fielder. You can see over the last couple of years he's been about a league average hitter in the majors in terms of his production. If we can get league average production from him offensively with good defense in center field, hopefully that will help our defense at a relatively important position and allow us to shift Jesus Sanchez back to his natural position at right field, where he's better defensively. The nice thing about sending that contract away with those minor leaguers was that we were able to get the Giants to retain 75% of Dubon's contract. So from that perspective, the positive is that it has opened up a little bit of money for us to potentially bring on some more talent and add a little bit of salary as we get closer to the trade deadline if we decide there's a couple players out there that can make a difference for us. So that is what we will be looking for in the coming weeks. Well, we've made it past the trade deadline, but we are still in last place, and we were not able to do too much to really change the very mediocre direction that our team is on at this point. We had mentioned earlier that we traded away Michael Conforto at the beginning of July. The one other significant move that we made was that we traded away Phillip Evans, who we had traded for in the offseason, but was unhappy with his role with us, even though he was on pace to get more playing time than he had been the previous season in Pittsburgh. And we traded him to the Red Sox along with a package of minor leaguers, the most interesting of which was probably shortstop Jose Salas. To the Red Sox for Christian Arroyo, who will be able to, step in and play second base for us. An upgrade, a modest upgrade, and he is signed for next season, and we were able to get the Red Sox to maintain 40% of his contract, so could become our second baseman of the immediate future and a little bit of an improvement to our lineup. But that was really all that we were able to do. So we are probably in the final couple of months of our tenure with the Marlins. Disappointing in some cases if we do go, because I think that we have done a pretty decent job building up our minor league system over the past several seasons, and I think there is some good stuff there that will be helping out in the majors over the next 2, 3, 4 years. But whether or not we will be the ones to get to make those decisions is in question, but probably not trending in a good direction. Well, we've made it to September, and not surprisingly, we are still in last place. The big question now is whether we can get out of the cellar. We're 5 games behind the Nationals, so that's reasonably unlikely with only 30 games to go, but we'll see what happens there. Things have continued on a pretty bad path for us. Not that injuries are the reason we're bad. We were going to be bad regardless, but we've lost starter Sixto Sanchez, second baseman Devin Mann, who was our Rule 5 acquisition last year, and then center fielder Mauricio Dubon, who we picked up in the trade for Conforto a couple of months ago to pretty significant injuries over the last week and a half. Chase and Shreve, who has been basically out since the first week of the season, is in Jacksonville on a rehab assignment now, so we will get to bring him back up in the next few days to run out the string here and see what our future holds when we get to the end of the season in October. Well, we've simmed ahead just less than a week since we last spoke, and the not surprising news is that we have now been mathematically eliminated from the playoffs. So it will be 5 consecutive seasons that we did not make it to the playoffs. And even worse, there's definitely a chance that this will be the worst performance of our tenure. First season we had a 401 in winning percentage. Right now we're at 394. So we made some steady progress, and now we've been going in the wrong direction. Definitely not what we had hoped when we started this. I will say that the farm system is in a decent spot at this point. Jacksonville had a great season at the AAA level, and then Miami in the Gulf Coast League with our newer players was also strong. And you can see that we have built up the system to have 6 top 100 players, along with another 3 who are right on the borderline. So there is some help coming. It will most likely be a different manager than Don Mattingly and a different general manager than myself, who will get to take advantage of that in the coming years. But we'll see how the last few weeks of the season go. Well, the regular season is mercifully over, and it was a disappointing run for the Marlins, to say the least. We finished 66 and 96 in last place. We're eliminated from the playoffs, as we talked about almost a month ago exactly. The lone victory for us is that we did, by virtue of a single game, avoid having the lowest winning percentage during our tenure as GM, which is probably coming to an end. We missed out on our goal to play 500 ball. We regressed in on-base percentage to be the worst team in the National League, and I'm guessing probably the worst team in baseball. And, we did acquire a player or 2 along the way. Looking at what went wrong, when we get into our stats, it's pretty easy to see when your 4th outfielder leads your team in WAR. Probably not a great sign. Probably a sign that there's some work to do on the offensive side. Dominic Smith, who was our big free agent signing last year and is kind of the core of our offense right now, had a respectable season, but certainly not what we were looking for when we made him one of the highest paid players on our payroll-strapped team. Christian Arroyo, after we traded for him before the trade deadline, actually played really well for us. A WAR of 1.2 over 2 months with a 300 batting average, 751 OPS. But other than that, there's definitely not a lot to love. Franmil Reyes, another of our free agent signings last year, 23 homers, led the team in 68 RBIs, which sadly was among our team leaders, but his overall WAR was just 0.4. So certainly not a great season for us. And then 2 of the key young players that we were really trying to build this franchise around had very disappointing seasons. Jesus Sanchez, who's our center fielder / right fielder, and then Lewin Diaz at first base. Negative WARs for the season. Sanchez, definitely a down year offensively, and the same thing for Diaz, who lost a lot of playing time during the portions of the season where Mattingly was playing Dominic Smith at first base instead of him. And unfortunately, when we look at our pitching, the situation really is not much better. Eduard Bazardo, our closer, who ended up moving from that closing role and also starting a number of games for us, given the injuries we occurred, led the team in WAR at 2.3, and then Sixto Sanchez, who ended up on the injured list, and as you can see is going to be out for a good chunk of next season, was our second best player. And then Trevor Rogers, the pitcher who we have kind of built this all around, the one player homegrown that we signed to a long extension. As you can see, we've got him for $10 million this year, $14 next year, and then team options at $16 and $18 the last two seasons. Very, very disappointing season for us after at least being really good in 2023, leading the league in games started with a 1.30 ERA plus. Was more of a average profile in 2024, while still leading the league in games started, but an ERA plus of just 104 and a FIP minus of 98. And then this year clearly struggled, 7-8 record. He's very good at winning 7 games a season, I'll say that, but a 5.19 ERA, 83 ERA plus, and a 101 FIP minus, and his WAR has continued to come down. So disappointing year all in all. We will run through the postseason and see what happens with our job. Well, we've made it to the off season, and for the record, when we look at the playoffs, the Mets are the world champions, having beaten the Indians 4-1, and they handled the Atlanta Braves in the NLCS while Cleveland got by Toronto. So when you think about our division, at least the two best teams in the National League were both in the same division as us when all was said and done. But not a successful season, but the one thing that I have learned is it's pretty hard to get fired in OOTP 22. Despite the miserable season that I had and owner Bruce Sherman's anger, he's mad with my performance and he's worried. He expects more from me. He's going to be forced to seriously reevaluate our leadership structure if everyone doesn't step up their game. So a lot of verbal threats, but by the same token, he extended my contract. I did get a pay cut to $550,000 a year from $750,000 a year, but have the option to come back next season if I want to. So we'll see what happens. I need to make a decision on Tucker Barnhart and Dominic Smith's contracts. And as we have talked about throughout the season, don't have a lot of money to operate with. So we're really probably going to have to tear this thing to the bones and go with younger players next year out of our developing farm system is perhaps going to be the way to go. But we will circle back and think about the off season. I did a couple of weeks ago extend Don Mattingly, so he will still be the manager for us going forward. Didn't feel it was fair to blame him for the awfulness of the roster about him and the difficult situation we have in terms of very mediocre finances. Our budget next season is going to be the same as this last season, so certainly not going to be any obvious way to make huge changes and improve the situation, but we will do the best that we can. Thank you all for watching, and look forward to planning the off season in our next episode.